Yan. So, I just noticed just this morning lang na that yun nga, I was not able to change the first question of your homework. One, kasi for me to maintain the formatting, I just copy the page from the previous homeworks and then ini-edit ko na siya so that I would be able to maintain yung yung formatting nung mga table. Okay. So, nakalimutan ko siyang palitan ng question. Okay. If you want to check, you can check it out here sa homeworks under ng content library. May mga copies kayo ng homework diyan from 1 to 5. So this is homework 4, okay? Ito yung question niya. Okay? You just need to find the end term of the given sequences. Yun yung gagawin niyo for that yung mali pa to. They should contain that. Ayan. Ayan. So, ayun, yung isa pang correction niya yun. So, mamaya update natin yung So, these are the questions for homework 4. Okay. Number 1. Number 2, as I was checking out yung kasi nagpe-prepare na ako for checking yung homeworks and your quiz. Kanina medyo nag-inspect ako ng class notebook. And accidentally in one of the operations that I was trying, accidentally nalako yung page ng homework 1 ninyo. Okay, sa side nyo talaga ha, yung homework 1 ninyo nalako. Although I was able to unlock it naman. I was able to reverse the operation. I don't know kung nag-apply na siya sa inyo. So please do check. Okay, please do check if for example, di pa kayo nagsasubmit. Tapos hindi niyo siya ma-edit. Inform niyo kagad ako kasi pag hindi niyo pina-unlock 'yun, that means sorry. Hindi kayo makakapag-update ng homework niyo. So Tapos doon naman sa mga nakapag-submit na, supposedly kasi pagka nag-submit na kayo ng homework niyo, once you turn in your homework, the page locks. Okay? Magla-lock yung page na yun. For example, pakita ko sa inyo yung lalabas. Tingnan natin kung may nakapag-turn in na sa homework 2. Wala naman to ano pa naman to, open pa naman yung due date nun. So it's okay that hindi makita yung hindi pa naka-turn in yung sa inyo. So that's fine. Pakita ko lang sa inyo kung anong itsura nung interface ko when I will be working on your homeworks. Okay? So habang hintayin niyo to, also as a reminder, please do take note that you need to edit your class notebook. Okay? I need you to edit your class notebook in order for you to present the answers. Okay? Hindi pwedeng hindi magwo-work yung magpapasa kayo in a separate document. Although the teams would allow it. Ang problema kasi dito kasi ako mag-check. I'll be checking your work from OneNote. So if you submitted it separately, hindi ko siya makikita. I will not be able to check it. Now, makikita niyo dito when you have already turned in. Okay, paki-confirm lang ng mga Okay, andiyan ba si Miss Belmoro? Ayan, andiyan si Miss Belmoro, no? Miss Belmoro, nag-turn in ka na ng homework 2 mo. Andiyan ba si Miss Belmoro? So, ayun, hindi natin sure kung sino ba yung mga naka-turn in. Si Mr. Manalansan. Andiyan ba si Mr. Manalansan? Wala rin. Basta ganito. May indicator sa akin kapag nakapag-turn in na kayo, which means naka-lock na siya dito. Okay, so, ang nangyari kasi sa homework 1 nyo ngayon is that I have unlocked all. Kung nakasabit na kayo, okay, if you have been able to submit, nakalock kasi siya. Ayun, mukhang ni-resubmit na ni Miss Belmoro yung homework niya. So, there. Lahat ng nakapag-submit na before, hindi ko alam kung ano nangyari sa teams niyo sa team side. baka hindi na siya naka-turn in sa team side. So, paki-check kasi kailangan niyo siya ulit i-turn in. You need to have to turn it in.
Hello po, sir. Chinek ko po kasi siya. Naka-turned in po yung status niya sa Teams. Tapos, naka-unlock po siya sa notebook.
Okay. So, sige. So, if you can confirm that, ilalak ko tong, sorry, nabuksan ko yung homework mo. Ilalak ko tong, ilalak ko tong, ano mo na. Ganun. Ayan. So, nakalak na siya.
Pero hindi
so,
naman po nabago yung, hindi naman po nabago yung status sa Teams. Kaya hindi ko po tinurn in ulit.
Okay, so sige. Okay lang. Kasi ang worry ko kasi is baka hindi din siya na-turn in siya sa sa Teams. So, ayun. So kung mako-confirm naman na ganun, so okay lang pala. But ito yung problema ngayon kasi wala na akong indicator ngayon kung nakapag-turn in kayo dito o hindi. So, probably one good is to turn it in first tapos i-turn in nyo ulit para mag-lock siya dito. Ganun siguro yung mas magandang gawin. Para makita ko kung sino na yung mga pwede ko nang checkan. Okay, so I hope you can take a look at that. Tapos yun nga sorry, naka-expose yung assignment mo. Okay. Balik tayo dito. Okay, so yun nga, please do work on your homeworks here sa OneNote. Do not create a separate document. Ito na nga yung document na pinapagawa sa inyo. Kasi I was able to check 2 or 3 students that that submitted a separate document dun sa nila, dun sa in their homework. So number one, it actually poses a very difficult situation for me pag mag-check ako. Okay, it will really be a difficult part on my part to check it kasi what will happen is kailangan ko pang i-download yung in-upload yung file. Tapos I have to use another program to check your which I wouldn't know. Malamang PDF yun eh. What I would be able to download is a PDF. So kung PDF yun, medyo mahirap kasi gumamit ng writing tablet sa PDF. So I would not be able to write my feedback and I won't be able to check your paper properly if you are to submit in a PDF form. So that is why it will really be a difficult a task for me kung sa iba kayo nag-submit. Pag dito kasi, nandito na lahat ng gagawin natin eh. What will happen is that when I return your homework, you'll be able to see my feedback outright. Okay, even if hindi pa nga ako nagre-return ng homework, makikita nyo kagad yung score niyo once na gawin ko, i-correct ko yung nyo. Or magkaroon ako if I can have a feedback on your work. Okay? So yun that's the essence of prescribing formats sa mga gawa niyo. Yun kasi yung tulong niyo sa akin, sa mga instructors niyo. Okay? Para mapadali yung pag-assess nila ng papers. Alam niyo ang sasabihin na hindi mahirap gumawa ng exam. Ang mahirap mag-assess ng papers. that is the most difficult part of this job, yung pag-assess ng papers. So kaya nagpe-prescribe kami ng format, certain way of writing documents in order for us to facilitate the checking. So, yun naman ang pakiusap namin sa inyo. Please do follow that format. Kasi hindi naman namin siya binibigay lang on a whim. Yung hindi lang pinagtitipan lang namin kayo para lang gawin yun. Number one, para yun sa inyo, para organize yung work nyo. Number two, para din yun sa amin. Kasi yun yung way namin para mas madali kami makapag-check. Okay, so hopefully tingnan niyo yung mabuti yan. Okay. Ano ba? So I also posted already homework 5. Okay, so pwede tayong kumpleto na yung coverage ng quiz natin para sa Wednesday. Okay, so you have a few days. Isang topic lang naman yung i-discuss natin isang lesson lang naman yung i-discuss natin under topic 5. Okay, so I have chosen lang isang topic lang muna. Okay. Supposedly dapat 5 lessons to eh. Okay, but I chose na isang lesson lang muna yung i-discuss natin. Okay? And kasi ito baka medyo actually ito yung gusto kong ma-master niyo eh. The other po topics kasi are actually parang specialized specialized part lang nito. Okay? Pero this is the one that I would really like you to learn first. Because if you learn this, kahit yung apat hindi ko discuss yun, ibigay ko as a problem. Basta magamit nyo tong method na to. Madali na yung apat eh. Kasi those are lang naman. Those are special functions. The Legendre function, the Legendre equation, the Bessel equation, and the hypergeometric equations na can be solved using power series method. Okay, so that is why ito medyo prioritize ko tong part na to. Okay? And yun, naka-assign na yung niyo, yung homework file niyo. Okay, so which brings us to the point. May questions ba regarding sa mga announcements ko? Okay, so mga wala naman. So let's proceed though. So for today, we'll discuss the power series method. And this assumes that that you were able to you were able to study yung topic 4, okay? Which probably baka nasa kalahati pa lang kayo. Dahil there are 10 lessons there. Okay, so baka medyo nasa kalahati pa lang kayo. Which is okay lang naman. Pwede niyo namang mahabol yan. And this is recorded, so probably kung hindi niyo maintindihan yung lessons ngayon because there are some things that you haven't yet understand from topic 4, pwede niyo namang balikan dito. Okay? Pero actually, some of the topics there some of the lessons there at the topic 4, while some of them will be useful here, okay? You can actually learn this part, okay, without really fully going over all of the topic 4. But what is important is for you to learn Taylor series, Maclaurin series, which is I think covered in topic lesson 10, lesson 4.10, and power series, which is covered somewhere in lesson 4.7 yata. Okay? Tsaka yung kasunod yung topic 4.8. So these are the topics na talagang critical dito sa sa part na to. Yung lesson from 4.1 up to 4.6. These are foundational topics kasi. Okay, these are topics that you need to learn to understand this naman. Okay? Pero once you were able to understand these things, okay? Pwede niyo namang maintindihan itong lesson natin. Pero basically what we will do, okay? What we will do is we will try to lay the foundations first of the power series method. Okay? So the power series method is a standard method for solving linear ODEs with variable coefficients. Okay? So as you have as you may have mentioned before nung tinanong ko kayo, you might not have studied a method, okay, where you solve differential equations having variable coefficients. Tama ba? Wala kayong method to solve ODEs or differential equations na yung coefficients niyo ay variable. Something like y double prime plus p of x y prime plus q of x equals r of x. Sorry, may y pala to. Did you study a method on how to solve something like this? So, mukhang hindi nyo pa nga siya nakikita kasi hindi pa kayo makapag-react. Okay, so, I mean, your silence confirms the assumption that we have, which understandable din naman kasi this is a topic that is really very hard to kahit naman ako nagtuturo ako ng differential equations. Hindi ko pa naabot to kahit minsan yata or isang beses naabot ko to pero very pahapyaw lang. Okay. And hindi pa itong method na to ha. Hindi pa itong method ang ginamit namin. We have a method called variation of parameters. Okay? So, that's under, pagkatapos siya ng, method of undetermined coefficient. Ito yung susunod sana. Okay? So, tas meron pang special condition yan dito sa, sa equation niyo. Okay? Pero basically, if we have an equation like this, okay? If we have an equation like this, where your coefficients are now variable, okay? And they are function of x dapat. Kasi if they are if they would contain a function of y, that would render this equation nonlinear. Okay? Kapag of course, we're still on the topic of linear ODE. Okay? So we know that an equation would be linear. Okay? If the coefficients of your independent variable and their derivatives, yung coefficients nito at saka nito, okay, are either constants or functions of the independent variable. Okay? Dahil kapag ka ito, yung coefficient nilang ito at saka ito, are function na siya ng dependent variable. Say for example, nagkaroon ng y dyan, then this equation will not be linear. Okay? This will be a non-linear equation. So that is why naka-concentrate pa rin tayo dito. Okay? So, now what we will do, okay, what we will do here is to employ or to explore the idea of the power series method of solving these kinds of differential equations. Okay? So, konting review lang kung ano man yung nadaanan nyo with the previous topic is that we have studied that we can write out a power series expansion for your function, okay? When as in this form, okay? And when your series is written in this form, okay? Your series is said to be centered at C. Okay. Ibahin ko to this should be C, hindi XO. Okay. C kasi ginagamit ko sa previous lesson eh. So, ayun. So this is centered at C, no? Okay. So, and what if ever that if your C is equal to 0, okay, if ever that if your C is equal to 0, then the resulting series, the summation of AM x raised to m for m equals 0, okay, up to infinity equals a0 plus a1x plus a2 x squared and so on, okay, is another power series pero magkaiba lang yung tawag natin sa kanya. Okay? This series is called the Taylor series. Okay, the Taylor series of a function. Okay, while this one, when C is equal to 0, is called the Maclaurin series. Okay, this is clear. Okay, so ito one is a Taylor series. Ito yung sinasabi kong when C is equal to 0. Okay? So when C is equal to 0, your series looks like this. Okay? Still, this is a power series Take note lang that Taylor series at saka Maclaurin series are basically power series. Because when you actually expand your series or when you have your Taylor or Maclaurin series, okay, you will see that the resulting series is a polynomial. Okay? The resulting series is a polynomial in X. So, kaya siya tinawag na power series. Because ang nag-evolve dito is yung power ng independent variable ninyo. Okay? So, here, ang gagamitin, dun sa previous lesson, I was using N as an index. So, mapapansin nyo, lahat ng material ninyo, okay, lahat ng material ninyo sa topic 4, lahat siya naka-summation ng N equals 1 to infinity or naka-summation yan from N equals 0 to infinity. So, either ito or ito. So, I'm using N. Okay? Here, most of the time, I'll be using M. Okay, I'll be using M as an index. Pareho lang naman yun. Index assignment lang naman siya. Okay. Because I'll be reserving N for some very special, for some very special purposes. Okay, during the discussion. So that's why medyo nag-shift ako ng index. Ng indexing para sa ng indexing notation para sa summation sign niyo. Okay? So you need to be familiar with this Maclaurin series, okay? Which is provided also sa sa topic 4 ninyo dito sa topic 10. There is a table there. Yan, there is a table here. Ito. There is a table here that summarizes power series for elementary functions. When you say elementary functions, these are functions that we know really of. Okay? Yun talagang natin na pag-uusapan natin. Like, for example, 1 over x, 1 over 1 plus x, ln x, e raised to x, sin x, cosine, and so on. Okay, so, this is a reference table that you can use in order to refer to the power series expansion for elementary functions. Okay. Now what is given here are Taylor series expansions. Okay, lahat yan mga naka-Taylor series. Okay. If you want to change it to these are Maclaurin series pala. Sorry This is Maclaurin series. Okay. If you want to change this to a Taylor series. Okay. Kailangan lang natin palitan tong, for example, in the case of sin x. Okay, in the case of sin x, okay. Kaya lang nasa ako dito. Ito na lang, dito na lang. This is a familiar Maclaurin series for sin x. Okay, and this is for cosine x. Okay. Now, if you want to make this a Maclaurin series, I mean a Taylor series. Again, Maclaurin series to Okay. If you want to express this in terms of the Taylor, it's equivalent Taylor series. Unang-una, meron kayong kailangang ibigay na center. Okay, yun nga yung C. Okay? So, say for example, that center is C, no? Okay, so may bibigay siyang center. Okay, now what will you do is that you will be asked to provide or to write a Taylor series equivalent for example, cosine of x centered at C. Okay, so parang ganito yung problem. Write a Taylor series expansion for cosine of x centered at, sabihin natin centered at 2, halimbawa lang. Okay? So, yan yung problem. Write a Taylor series expansion for cosine x centered at 2. Ang gagawin nyo lang is that, yung nandito sa right side, okay, lahat ng x dyan, papalitan nyo lang ng x minus 2. Okay? So, what will happen is this. Yung Taylor series expansion nyo for cosine of x centered at 2, okay, can be written as summation of -1 raised to m x minus 2, okay, raised to 2m divided by 2m factorial for m equals 0 up to infinity. Which kapag in-expand natin becomes, so when m is 0 here, this becomes this is -1 raised to 0, that's +1. This is x minus 2 raised to 0, so that's 1. Okay, and this is 2 times 0, so 0 factorial, so that's 1. So you'll have this as 1. Okay. So that's 1, okay. That's the first term. Yung second term niyan is when m is equal to 1. So, when m is equal to 1, this is -1 raised to 1, so that's negative. Okay. This is x raised to 2 raised to 2m. Okay, so that should be x minus 2 squared. Okay. Divided by 2 times 1. Okay. That's 2 factorial. So, you write that's 2 factorial. Okay, and so on. Ang magiging pattern niyan is this. X minus 2 square over 4 factorial minus x minus 2 square over 6 factorial. Okay, and so on. Ngayon, para hindi kayo masyadong natatagalan ng pag-figure kasi you would have to substitute m from 0 to infinity here. Pag nag-expand kayo, you need to discern the pattern. That's the one thing that I have reminded you dun sa topic 4, that you have to really look for patterns so that you can write them, you can write your series better and faster. Okay, so kasi kung titingnan nyo tingnan nyo mabuti ito. Nakaka-intimidate to, di ba? Makita nyo lang yan, intimidating na yan. Tama ba? Okay. But, si Miss Gonzales, nabuksan yata yung mo, yung webcam mo. Paki-off na lang. Ayun, thank you. Pero tingnan niyo tong kabila, yung equivalent niya. Mas madali siya, mas pleasing siya sa eyes, 'di ba? Kumbaga parang madali siyang intindihin. Because you can actually write the rest of the terms once you are able to discern the pattern. So that's one thing. Basta makuha niyo sana makuha niyo yung first few terms. Okay, makuha niyo yung first few terms of the series, and then try to write the pattern without actually looking here. Okay? So again, this is the Maclaurin series. Okay, this is the Taylor series. Okay? Questions so far? Okay, so mukhang wala naman. Okay. Now let's try to discuss the idea and technique of the power series method. Okay? So the idea of the power series method of solving linear ODEs seems natural once we know that the most important ODEs in applied mathematics have solutions of this form. Okay? At this point, we will use this power series method. Okay? We will use this power series method in the differential equations that we can actually solve using elementary methods. When I talk about elementary methods, these are the methods that you have studied in your differential equation course. Yung separation of variables, yung method of undetermined coefficients, yung mga ganun. Okay, those are elementary methods of solving your ODEs. Okay. Laplace transform is an indirect method. Okay. But nevertheless can be considered as an elementary method. Okay, so you can actually use Laplace transform here kasi we were able to study naman na before how to use the Laplace transform in this case. Okay. But here we will try to start to solve this using the power series method. Okay? Pero bago 'yan, let's try to solve this muna nga using yung elementary method. So the equation is y prime minus y equals 0. Okay. Paano ba natin sisimulan i-solve to? I-write muna natin siya as dy over dx minus y equals 0. How do I solve this one? Anong method? Anong elementary method? Which elementary method can I use in order to solve this equation?
Variable separable po siya.
So, by separation of variables, I can actually solve this now. So, to do that, I would have to rewrite this as dy over dx equals y. Okay? Or make this dy over y equals dx. That separates the variables together with their differentials. Okay? So, magkakasama na ngayon yung variable ko at saka yung differential niya. Okay? So, I can now integrate this one. Okay? Which gives me, or which yields the natural logarithm of y equals x plus c. Tama ba? Or instead of using c as my arbitrary constant, I'll instead use e raised to c. Or hindi, ano na lang, ln of c na lang pala. Okay? Also, you can also take note that I can rewrite x, okay, as the natural logarithm of e raised to x. Tama ba? These two are equivalent.
Yes po, sir.
So I can have this as the natural logarithm of y equals natural logarithm of e raised to x plus the natural logarithm of c, which ito, right side ko, can be written as the natural logarithm of c times e raised to x equals the natural logarithm of y. In which case, since both of these sides can are inside the natural logarithm function, then I can just simply say that y here equals c times e raised to x. So ito yung general solution nung nung ODE na to. Okay? Is that clear? Okay. Now, in the power series method, ito yung steps. Now, okay. First, you would assume that the solution is a power series. Okay, you would assume that the solution is, ito fixed step ito. Ibig sabihin, ito talaga yung unang-unang step niyan. You have to assume that the solution is the power series of this form. Okay? So that's the first step. Now, the second step is to look at your equation. Your equation is y prime minus y equals 0. Okay? Y prime minus y equals 0. So, which means, ang kailangan ko is palitan ko to ng mga power series. What I need to do is to replace this y prime and then this y by a power series. Now, since I have already assumed y as this series, then I need to obtain y prime, which can be done by differentiating this series. Okay, is that clear? Kailangan nyo lang i-supply itong mga yung mga nandito. Okay, you just need to supply these things. Yung y prime, kung kailangan nyo magsisimula kasi kayo sa y you'll have to start with y. Okay? And then if you need y prime, you solve for y prime. Okay? If you need y double prime, you need to solve for y double prime. Okay? So that is why you need to learn how to differentiate power series. May lesson yan sa meron yang coverage at topic sa lesson 4.8 yata or 4.7. Differentiation and integration of ito 4.8 yun. Ayan. May lesson dito na differentiation and integration of power series. So, you may want to look at this para matutunan nyo to. Okay? So, ayun. So, going back. Okay. So, pero basically, when we differentiate this is simply just a term by term differentiation. Halimbawa, tingnan nyo to, itong term na to. Okay? This is basically, you just differentiate this by term. Okay? So, the derivative of this is 0. Okay? The derivative of this is a1. Okay? The derivative of this is 2a2 ax. Okay? Nasusundan? Okay? Sandali lang. Okay, so, but what you also need to know is how to write it on a general term basis. So basically, if your function is if your n term is or m term in this case is am, okay, times x raised to m, okay, its derivative, okay, the derivative of this with respect to x, okay, the derivative of this with respect to x is essentially m times a sub m times x raised to m minus 1. Okay, nagets ba? Kung paano nakuha ito from here? Okay, so now that we are able to get, because we only need the first derivative and y. Okay, we only need the first derivative and y. Okay, now that you are able to get y and its first derivative, you are now ready to make the substitutions. Okay, you now are ready to make the substitutions there. So you substitute now this y prime, which is a1 plus 2ax, 2a2ax plus 3a3x squared plus 4a4 x cubed and so on. And then you also substitute y here. So this is y prime minus, okay, y minus y equals 0. So you substitute them the series for y prime and the series for y. Okay? Nasusundan pa ako? Substitute, no? Okay. Now, after making the substitution, okay, since you want to combine this, okay, you want to algebraically combine this entire thing, it would make sense that you combine, okay, those terms having like powers of x. So pagsasama-samahin nyo, okay, you have to combine all those terms or all those terms from this, okay, that will possess like powers of x. Okay, for example, this a1 here, okay, and this a0 here both contain x raised to 0. Okay, they both contain x raised to 0. So therefore, they must be combined. So a1 minus a0. Okay? This term here and this term here, okay, both contain x raised to 1. So they should be combined. Okay? Is that clear? Okay? Ito kasi itong problem na to, medyo madali lang yung approach nito. So that is why yung presentation nito is ginawa ko lang siyang equation form. Pero later on in the next example na medyo may konting complications at medyo mahaba-haba ng konti. Medyo tinabulate ko to. This is written in a tabulated form. Okay? Hindi mo exact pero yung pinaghiwa-hiwalay ko siya, like for example, x raised to 0, ang makukuha nyo dyan is a1 minus a0. Okay, a1 minus a0. Tapos, x raised to 1, okay, which is 2a2, okay, 2a2, okay, minus a1. Ganito yung presentation niya sa mga susunod na examples. Okay, so dito kasi medyo hindi pa ganun kahirap tong example na to. So that is why present ko muna siya this way. Okay, pero basically, you need, I mean this way pala. Dito na pala ako. So I present it this way now. Okay, so, pero basically, the idea is to combine the like powers of x. Okay? Nasusundan pa ako? May question ba so far? Walang questions? May questions pala? Sorry. Okay. Now, after combining the coefficients, okay, or the terms having like powers of x. This is now the point where you would have to solve for the coefficients of your series. So kailangan nyo ngayong ma-solve yung coefficients ng series niyo. Okay, so in this case, ang coefficient series niyo is lalabas siya ng the coefficients are a0, a1, a2, a3, a4 and so on. So these are the coefficients of your power series. Okay? But before you start solving solving these coefficients, remember to set aside, okay, arbitrary constants. From this coefficients, kailangan mag-set aside kayo ng arbitrary constants depending on how many arbitrary constants your equation will need. Okay. For example, in this equation, ilang arbitrary constants ang makikita ninyo sa general solution niya? How many arbitrary constants will this equation require in its general solution?
Isa lang po, sir.
1, sir.
1. Paano nyo nalaman yun?
Kasi yung ano po, sir, derivative.
Okay.
Isang derivative.
Very good. So since this is a first order equation, the highest appearing derivative is of order 1. So this is a first order equation. It should require 1 arbitrary constant. Okay, malinaw tayo dun ha. Yung order ng equation nyo specifies how many arbitrary constants your equation or your general solution will have. So in this case, first order equation, 1 arbitrary constant. So that means you have to set aside from these coefficients, you have to set aside 1 arbitrary constant. So dahil isa lang, yung A0 ang gagamitin nating arbitrary constant. Okay? Pag kailangan nyo dalawa, okay, if you need 2 arbitrary constants, ang gagamitin nyo ay A0 and A1. Okay? Pag kailangan nyo tatlong arbitrary constants, you need to set aside A0, A1, and A2 as arbitrary constants. Malinaw ba yan? Okay. Now, since AO is now our arbitrary constants, okay? We now have to express, okay? We now have to express A1 up to AN, lahat yan. We now have to express this in terms of A0. So, i-express natin ngayon yung A1, A2, A3, A4, and so on in terms of A0, in terms of your arbitrary constant. Okay? And for you to do that, yun yung purpose kung bakit natin siya pinaghiwa-hiwalay term by term. Because what we will do is we will equate the coefficients of each term on the left side and on the right side. So, yung mga coefficients, for example, ng x raised to 0 dito sa left side, i-equate natin sa coefficient nung x raised to 0 dito sa right side. Okay? Ganun din yung x raised to 1, yung coefficients ng x raised to 1, we will have to equate it into the coefficients of x raised to 1 on the right side. Nasusundan ako? Are you able to follow that? Okay. So, kaya kailangan nyo to. Okay? You need this statement. So, for x raised to 0, okay? So, nakita natin that for x raised to 0, the coefficient is A1 minus A0. Okay? So, A1 minus A0. Now, sa right side, ano yung coefficient ng x raised to 0 ninyo? What is the coefficient of x raised to 0 on this right side? Nakita nyo, 0 lang yan, di ba? So, ano yung coefficient niya doon? Zero din. Okay. Kasi nga, 0 yung right side eh. So, therefore, wala kayong lahat ng coefficients ng x raised to 0, x raised to 1, x raised to 2, lahat ng coefficients yan, lahat yan 0. Kasi you can write actually the right side as x raised to 0, 0 times x raised to 0, plus 0 times x raised to 1, plus 0 times x raised to 2, and so on. So you'd see that the coefficients of this terms, okay, are 0. So what we will do is that we will equate this. Ito yung coefficient sa left side. I-equate natin yan sa coefficient on the right side. Okay, which is 0. So we will do that for all of this. Okay, for all of the terms that we were able to combine on the left side. So this is for x raised to 0. This is for x raised to 1. Okay, for x raised to 2, this is 3a minus a2 equals 0. For x cubed equals 4a minus a, this is 3a 3 minus a2 equals 0. This is 4a4, okay, minus a3 equals 0. For x raised to 4, that's 5a4, 5a sub 5 minus a4 equals 0, and so on. Okay, and so on. Now, question. How many terms do you need to write? Okay, baka yan yung question niyo. How many terms do I need to write, sir? It actually depends on how well you can recognize the pattern. If you can recognize the pattern in 3 or 4 terms, edi write out 3 or 4 terms. Pero kapag hindi, you need to write more terms so that you can really recognize the pattern. Okay? Maliwanag ba yun? Okay? So the number of terms that you need to write out here, okay, depends on depends on how well can you recognize the pattern. So in this case, I have written 5 terms here. Baka naman sa 5 terms may makita na tayo ng pattern. Okay? Now here's what we're going to do. Since AO is our arbitrary constant, what we will need to do is to solve A1, A2, A3, A4 in terms of AO. So, kailangan lahat siya naka-express in terms of AO. Okay, so here's what we're going to happen. We start with A1 minus A0 equals 0, which implies that A1 equals A0. So, may A1 na tayo. Okay, again, you express this in terms of AO. Dapat yung right side niya naka-AO. Nasusundan ako? Okay. Next, we'll go with x raised to 1. So with x raised to 1, this is 2a2 minus a1 equals 0, which implies that a2 equals 1/2 a1. Tama ba? It should imply that a2 is 1/2 a1. Tama? Okay. But tingnan nyo. A1 is equal to A0. Okay? A1 is equal to A0. So, I substitute it here. Ipapalit ko tong A1 na to dito. So that I can write A2 equals 1/2 A0. Again, I have to express this in terms of A0. So, dapat ito yung end goal ko. Dapat yung right side niya, A0. So, meron na akong A2. Okay? Nasusundan ako? Okay, so let's continue. A3, this for x squared, this is x squared. For x squared, this is 3a3 minus a2 equals 0, which implies that a3 is 1/3 of a2. But a2, so 1/3, a2 is 1/2 of a0. Okay? Tama. So, this would imply then that A3 is 1/3 times 2 times A0. Okay. Recommendation ko lang. Pag naggaganto kayo, wag muna kayo mag-multiply. Mag-anticipate kayo ng appearance ng factorial. Okay? Please do anticipate the presence of n factorial later on. So, wag muna kayo mag-multiply out. Wag nyo muna tong gawing 1 over 6 AO kasi baka hindi nyo makita yung factorial later eh. Okay? So, mag-anticipate kayo, may lalabas dyan na n factorial. Kahit anong problem whatever problem that we are talking about. Okay? Whatever problem that we are talking about. If you are encountering a pattern such as this one, okay, remember ito actually 2 times 1 to sa ilalim eh. Okay? Mag-anticipate kayo na may lalabas na n factorial dyan. Okay, pag nakakita kayo ng mga ganyang pattern, that you have to multiply 2 times 1, tapos 3 times 2. Okay? So, ayun. Pero wag nyo rin muna isulat as factorial kasi baka mamaya hindi naman pala siya factorial. What I am trying to point out here is that you don't multiply out numbers yet until we are sure that they become factorial later on. Okay? Is that clear? Okay, so do not multiply out numbers yet. Okay. Let's proceed to x cube. So this is 4 a4 minus a3 equals 0. Okay? Which implies that a4 is 1/4 of a3. Correct? Okay? Which is yung 1/4, okay, nung a3, but a3 is ito. Okay? So yung a3 is 1 over 3 times 2 of a0. Okay? Which makes this 1 over 4 times 3 times 2 times a0. Okay? So, meron tayong a3, meron tayong a4. Ilan terms na to? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 terms. So, sagalin na natin. Kunin na rin natin to. So, you have 5a5 minus a4 equals 0. Okay? Which implies that a5 is 1/5 of a4. But a4 is this. Okay? a4 is this one. So, therefore, this is 1/5 times 1 over 4 times 3 times 2. Times a0. Okay? And writing it simply as 1 over 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times a0. Okay. At this point, siguro medyo malinaw naman na to, no? Medyo malinaw na to that the denominator here is actually a factorial. Okay? Tingnan nyo mabuti yung pattern, ha? Okay, tingnan nyo mabuti yung pattern. If I let this to be n, okay, the subscript of this to be n, okay, then when n equals 1, okay, a1 equals a0, which I can also write as 1 over 1 factorial times a0. Tama ba? Okay. When n equals 2, okay, tingnan natin to. When n equals 2, a2 is 1 over 2 times 1 times a0, which can be written as 1 over 2 factorial times a0. Tama? Ayun. Sumagot. Anyway, so I'll continue ha. N equals 3 is a3 equals 1 over 3 times 2. Okay? And pwede ko naman lagyan ito times 1 without actually changing the value. Because this is just multiplied to 1. So this is 3 times 2 times 1 multiplied to AO, which can be written as 1 over 3 factorial times A0. Okay pa tayo?
Yes, sir.
Are you still following, ha? Alam nyo, medyo iniisa-isa ko to na at tinatanong ko rin kayo isa-isa kasi ano, this is a multi-step problem. Napakaraming steps ito, so kailangan kong nasusundan nyo to. Okay. Pero once na makuha nyo yung pattern, makuha nyo yung step by step, madali namang siya sundan actually. Okay? Yun nga lang, matrabaho lang din talaga. So when n equals 4, A4 is 1 over, tingnan ito ha, 1 over 4 times 3 times 2. And again, pwede ko lagyan ng times 1 without changing the value of this. Okay? Times A0. So that can be written as 1 over 4 factorial A0. Okay? And when n equals 5, mali pala yung sunod ko dito. This is when n equals 4. And then when n equals 5, A5 equals 1 over 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1 times A0 equals 1 over 5 factorial times A0. Okay? So, mamaya, susunod ulit natin yan. Okay? So, tandaan natin na these are our coefficients. Okay? So, now, na-determine nyo na yung coefficients. No? And again, this is ano kailangan natin lagyan niya ng and so on. Because these are not only the coefficients that we need to solve. We need to solve infinite number of coefficients. Pero we just report the first few terms so that we can just see a pattern. Okay? So when you report this, huwag nyo kakalimutan to lagyan ng so on. Kasi that implies that you are still solving for more coefficients. Pinakita nyo lang yung first few terms. Okay, is that understood? Okay. Now, the next step after that, when you are able to solve now, okay, you now go back to your solution. Okay? You now go back to your solution. Kasi di ba sa una, yan yung first step natin eh. Yung assumption natin that this is the solution. So we now go back to that. Okay? Let's go back to that one. Okay? So our solution, okay, is said to be y equals a0 plus a1 x plus a2 x squared plus a3 x cubed plus a4 x to the fourth plus a5 x to the fifth and so on. Okay? Ang nth term nga niyan is a sub m x raised to m. Okay? And so on. Now, we have to substitute the coefficients here. With AO being made an arbitrary constant, so may iwan yung AO dito. So, ang papalitan natin ngayon is yung A1, A2, A3, A4, and so on. So, we will have to replace A1, okay, with 1 over 1 factorial. Okay, so we will have to have, we will replace A1 with 1 over 1 factorial. Okay. Times x. Plus, A2 is, nakalimutan ko yung AO. 1 over 1 factorial times A0 x. Okay. Plus, ang A2 natin is, okay, nasusunod ba? 1 over 2 factorial A0 x squared. Okay? So, plus, ang A3 natin is 1 over 3 factorial times A0 times x cubed. Plus, itong A4 is 1 over 4 factorial, okay, times A0 times x raised to 4 plus 1 over 5 factorial times A0 times x raised to 5 and so on, which would lead us to think that AM, dapat pala M ang ginamit ko dito, hindi M, sorry. Gaya natin M. Okay. Which makes us think that ang end term natin, okay, the end term here F term is 1 over m factorial, okay, times A0, okay, times x raised to m. Nasundan to? Ayun nyo. 1, 1. Pareho yan. 2, 2. 3, 3. Okay, so pareho yan. Kaya kung m ang i-assign nyo dito, m din ito. Okay? So, we'll write the m term here as 1 over m factorial, okay, times A0 times x raised to m. And so on. So, nasundan to? Tingnan nyo ha, even this pattern would actually follow from here. Itong pattern na to, masusundan ito. If you just let m equals 0. If you let m equal 0, this becomes 1 over 0 factorial, which is 1. Okay? Times A0 times x raised to 0. So, lalabas, a raised to 0 siya. So, ayun. Nasundan natin. Itong term na to, nasama sa pattern na to. O sa m term na to. So, yun. Maganda yun. Okay. So, saglit lang. Nag-i-struggle mag-sync yung ano. Ayan. Okay. So, now, anong susunod natin? Ano sa palagay yung susunod na gagawin dito? What's the next thing that I can do here? Ano yung napapansin nyo sa mga terms? May nakikita ba kayong common sa kanya? Anyone? Andiyan pa ba kayo? Mas masagot. Anong sa palagay nyo susunod pag gagawin dito? What's the next thing that we can do? As we can observe from the from the equation here or from the expression here. So, as you can see, common yung A0. So, we can actually factor it out. Okay, very good. So, ano may iwan? Yep. We can factor out A0 or A0 yan. Okay, so what will be the common factor the common factor is A0. So the other factor is 1 plus 1 over 1 factorial x, okay, plus 1 over 2 factorial x squared plus 1 over 3 factorial x cubed plus 1 over 4 factorial times x raised to 4 plus 1 over 5 factorial times x raised to 5 and so on. So still, this is 1 over m factorial times x raised to m. Okay? That is your y. Ngayon, tignan nyo mabuti ito, this power series. Okay? Once you are able to isolate that that common factor, look at this power series. Okay? You may probably want to refer back to the list of power series or table of power series that you have, which is this one. Ito pala gumawa ako ng separate table para dito. Okay. Hanapan niyo siya ng pattern doon. Okay? Tingnan niyo mabuti to. Yung dito sa e raised to x. Okay? Kita nyo? Ito yung mga terms na hinahanap natin. 1 plus x. Bali, 1 over 1 factorial plus 1 over 0 factorial plus 1 over 1 factorial times x plus 1 over 2 factorial x squared. Okay? Ayan na, 1 plus 1 over 1 factorial. Okay, para nga makita nyo, i-ano natin. Screenshot natin. Yan. Diba yan yung pattern na hinahanap natin? Okay. We are looking for that pattern 1 plus x. Okay. Plus 1 half, 1 over 2 factorial times x squared. Plus 1 over 3 factorial times x cubed. Plus 1 over 4 factorial times x to the fourth, and so on. Okay. So which means we can replace this entire thing. Okay. We can replace that entire thing. Okay. With e raised to x. And if you actually let a0 equals c, which is the arbitrary constants you were using sa DE ninyo, okay, then you can write this solution as y equals c times e raised to x, which is the solution that we are able to get using the variable separation. Naintindihan ba to? Okay. To summarize the steps, no? Just to summarize the steps. Again, you start with with the solution. Okay, you start with the solution. Okay, the solution would be a power series. Now, if this is a solution, then you get the derivatives, the required derivatives based on the given equation. So you do a term-wise differentiation of your series. Okay, after that, make the necessary substitutions. Okay, collect terms having like powers of x. Okay, collect terms having like powers of x. Okay. Determine which constants will be made arbitrary. Okay. If you need one arbitrary constants, then that should be AO or A0. If you need two, that's A0 and A1. Okay, and so on. And then, solve or determine the coefficients in terms of these arbitrary constants. Okay. So determine these coefficients in terms of these arbitrary constants. So you'll have something like this. Okay? So again, do not multiply out numbers or terms yet. Okay? Kasi maghahanap nga tayo ng pattern. Okay? So you can also solve as many terms or as many arbitrary constants as you can, as long as you can recognize the pattern already. Kung kaya nyo i-recognize yung pattern in 2 to 3 terms, that's fine. If you can do it in 4, that's fine. If you can do it in 5, that's fine. If you can do it in 10, that's fine. Okay? So, it's up to you how many terms do you need to Pero hindi ako maniniwala. You cannot convince me that you can get a pattern out of 2 terms. Okay? Hindi nyo makukumbinsin na if you are to try to do this, you will not be able to convince me that you can get the pattern in 2 terms. Okay? That's kind of impossible. Siguro 3 or more Yun yung ano natin. Yun yung medyo mas convincing. Okay? So, ayun. Now, after determining the coefficients, well, after you are able to determine the coefficients, go back to the solution. Okay? Substitute the coefficients. Okay? And then look for patterns of known elementary functions. Okay? So you look for patterns of known elementary functions. And then simplify the solution. Okay? Is this clear? Now, let's try to work out another example, no? Again, this series, okay, or this equation can be solved using elementary methods. This can be solved using elementary methods. Sige ganito, try natin. Siguro sa drilling naman to eh. Okay. Since homogeneous naman to. Okay. Now, since this is a linear constant coefficient differential equation that is homogeneous. Homogeneous because the right side is is 0. Okay? It's non-homogeneous when this has a value or this is a function of x. Okay? Pero in this case, this is 0. This linear constant coefficient differential equation is homogeneous. So what we do, to start the method of undetermined coefficient, okay, is to translate this into an auxiliary equation. Okay, so y double prime plus y equals 0. Okay, gawan natin siya ng auxiliary equation. Okay, in which we will let y double prime, okay, equals m square. So that should imply that y prime equals m, okay, and y, okay, equals m raised to 0. Okay? Ano to ha? Tinuro na sa inyo ito sa DE. So baka iba lang yung pagkakaturo pero basically yun din yan. Okay? So this can be written as m square plus 1 equals 0. Okay, then we determine the roots of m. What are the roots of m in this case? What are the roots of m?
Plus minus 1 po.
So this is
Plus minus 1 po.
paki-check. Plus minus 1 ba? Yeah. So plus minus this would result to a complex number. So yeah, that's plus or minus I. Okay? That's plus or minus I kasi this is square root of negative 1 to eh. So this should result to an imaginary number. Now, ano ang rule natin? This results to a complex number. The roots of your auxiliary equation is a complex number. Okay? Equal to 0 plus bi. Okay? In this case, b is equal to 1. Pero 0 plus bi muna tayo. Okay. If the root of the auxiliary equation is a complex number, ano yung solution natin? What should be the solution? Under the rules ng homogeneous solution ng method of undetermined coefficient. Tatlong rules yan eh. Meron yung rule para sa real, distinct roots. Okay? Meron kayong rule para sa real equal roots. Okay? Tapos meron kayong rule para sa complex roots. Ano yung para sa complex roots? Natatandaan pa ba? Sige, ganito kung hindi nyo natatandaan, ganito siya pag complex roots, yung roots nyo would have the form A plus BI. Plus or minus BI. Dapat complex conjugate yan. So, pag complex roots yung ano nyo, yung pag complex roots yung ano nyo, yung roots ng ano niyo, ng auxiliary equation niyo, okay? Ito yung magiging results ng roots niya. So, ang magiging solution nyo para diyan, ando to ng complex roots rule. This is C1, dahil dalawang roots yan, kailangan dalawa na yung solution nyo. Dalawa na yung arbitrary constants nyo. Dahil dalawang roots na to eh. So, two roots, it would mean that it would require two arbitrary constants. So, you have C1 times e raised to negative ax. Positive pala yan. E raised to ax, okay? Cosine of bx plus C2 e raised to ax sine bx. Yan yung rule. Yan yung solution kapag ang roots nyo ay complex. Na-recall ba to? So, ayun. I-recall nyo pa rin yun dun sa dalawa, ha? Okay. So, in that case, since ang A nyo dito lumalabas 0, tapos ang B niyo lumalabas 1, okay? In this case, that it turns out that your A is 0 and your B is 1. Our homogeneous solution, and therefore would be the general solution, is C1 times cosine of x. B is 1. Yung A nyo is 0, so that becomes e raised to 0, x. So that becomes 1 din. So C1 times cosine of x plus C2 sine of x. Yan yung solution natin. This is the general solution now for this differential equation. Is this understood? So ayun, kung medyo i-review niyo yung rules niyo sa homogeneous solution ng MUC. Okay? If you would recall those rules, yung real distinct root, okay? Sabihin natin yan ay M1 equals A at saka sabihin natin yun ay M1 at saka M2. Okay? M1 at saka M2. Okay, it would lead to exponential solution. So ang homogeneous solution nyo dito is C1 e raised to M1x plus C2 e raised to M2x. Pagka real and distinct root, exponential yung solution niyo. Pag naman real distinct roots, real repeated pala. Ano ba yung nilagay ko dito? Ayun, equal or repeated. Equal or repeated, yun naman yun eh. Which means yung roots nyo, sabi natin M1 at saka M2, pareho lang. Pareho lang yung location niya. So that would be, sabi natin M na lang. Ang solution nyo dito is also exponential. But this time, yung second factor niyo magkakaroon ng x na multiplier para ma-separate siya dito sa una yung solution. You call these terms linearly independent kung naaalala niyo yung napag-aralan niyo sa DE. Okay, you call this term linearly independent with this one. Okay, so that is why meron akong x na multiplier dito to make them linearly independent with each other. O kaya baka mas sinusulat niyo to as C1 plus C2x times e raised to mx. Yan yung repeated root na rule niyo. Doon naman sa complex roots. Okay, yun na, nabanggit ko na nga. Unang-una, dapat siya ay complex conjugate. Ang makukuha nyo dapat dyan, complex conjugate. So, what will happen is that your homogeneous solution is C1 e raised to ax cosine of bx plus C2 e raised to ax cosine, sine pala, bx. Ayan. So kapag ka real yung roots niyo, Okay? If your roots are real, exponential yung solution niyo. Okay? If your roots are complex, your solution is sinusoidal. Yan. You have to remember that. Okay? Kailangan natin yung sa control systems. Okay? So, there. So, yun yung solution ha. Tandaan natin. The solution of this is y equals C1 cosine of x plus C2 sine of x. Okay? That's the solution. Okay? Now, we'll use power series for this one. Okay? Pero again kapag ganito yung problem, you don't use power series here kasi napakadali na nga ng problem. Nakita nyo naman yung solution, ito lang. Nakuha natin, ilang steps lang ito. Okay, pero pag ganyan yung problem, tapos gagamitin mo ng power series solution, syempre overkill yan. Okay, it would take you too many steps to just to obtain the solution using power series method. But kaya natin siya ginagawa dito is number one, we just want to verify yung solution ng power series method. Okay, we want to verify the solution of the steps undertaken using the power series method with a with an equation or with a DE that can that can be solved with elementary methods. Kailangan lang natin ng point of comparison. Okay, pero sa totoong buhay, hindi niyo gagamitin yung power series method o sa mga quizzes niyo. Hindi nyo gagamitin yung power series method to solve an equation something like this. Unless you are instructed to do so. Okay? Unless ang instruction says that you really have to solve this using power series method. Okay? So, ayun. Pero again, using the power series method to solve this, write the solution. Okay? That's the first step. Write the solution. Next. Since this requires second derivative, okay? The equation requires second derivative. So, kailangan natin kunin yung second derivative. Kaya lang, bago kayo dumaan ng second derivative, dadaan muna kayo ng first. So, that is why, kailangan natin yung first derivative din. Pero ang kailangan talaga natin is yung second derivative at saka yung y. Because those are the series that would appear on your equation. So, okay na ba tayo sa pagkuha ng mga derivatives? Ulitin lang natin Derivative nito, 0. Derivative nito, a1. Derivative of this is 2a2x. Derivative of this is 3a3x squared. Yung kasunod niyan, kung susundan nyo itong pattern na to, ang kasunod niyan is 4a4x cubed. Okay, medyo makukuha naman nyo yung pattern nito eh. First three terms, makukuha nyo yung pattern ng pang-apat, and so on. Okay. Second derivative. Derivative nito, 0. Derivative of this is 2 times yung power ng x nyo, which is 1. Okay, multiplied to a2. Tapos x raised to 0. So, ito na lang siya. Derivative of this is 3 times 2 yung power ng x. Okay, multiplied to a3 times x raised to 2 minus 1. So, magiging 1 na lang to. Okay? Ito, derivative nito. This is 4 times yung power ng x, which is 3, times a4. Okay? Times x squared, kasi minus 1 ito. Okay? And from here, pwede nyo sundan na yung pattern yan. So, lalabas naman dyan is 2, 1, tapos 3, 2, tapos 4, 3. Kasunod yan, 5, 4. Tapos if this is 2a2, a3, a4, then a5 yan. If this is x raised to 0, x raised to 1, x raised to 2, then this is x raised to 3. Okay? Malinaw yung pagkuha ng second derivative? Okay. Now, let's make the substitution. Kasi nga, we have to substitute it dun sa original equation nyo, which is y double prime plus y equals 0. So you have to substitute this equation, itong second derivative at saka yung y dito. So yung second derivative nyo is basically represented by this series. Okay. Although, hindi nyo makailangan siyang isulat dito, pero this is a more compact way of representing it. Pero ang importante talaga, ang makuha nyo, ito, yung talagang series niya. Okay? So, this is y double prime. Ito, this is y double prime. All of this is y double prime. While this one, okay, this one, is y. So, ito yun. Okay? Malinaw? Oh, question. What's the next step after this? Once we make the substitution, what's the next step that we can do after this? Nakapag-substitute na kayo eh. So, ano kaya, what step would make sense na dapat natin gawin pagkatapos nito? Kalimutan na. Ang next step dyan, pagsamasamahin natin yung coefficients na merong like powers. Okay, actually that's the logical step after that eh. Kasi ang gusto mong gawin dito is that you combine this into a single expression. So what you do is you combine those terms having like powers of x. So yung constant, okay? Tsaka yung constant nito pagsamahin natin. Ayan siya. Okay? That's 2 times 1 times a2 plus a0. Okay? And that would be for x raised to 0. Okay? Itong 3 times 2 times a3x at saka itong a1x pagsamahin natin. So that becomes 3a2x. 3a2 times 3 times 2 times a3 plus a1. Okay? Yan yung x raised to 1. Okay, malinaw ba 'yon? Okay. This time, no? This time. Diniretso ko na siya in equating it to the right side. But as you can see, your right side is still 0. Okay, your right side is still 0. So therefore, lahat ng coefficients nyo sa right side ay 0. Okay, baka lang magtaka lang kayo. Okay. What if merong nakalagay dito na 1 plus x square plus 1 plus x square plus x raised to 4. Halimbawa, may nakalagay sa right side na 1 plus x square plus x raised to 4. Okay, so anong gagawin nyo? Since yan yung nakalagay sa right side, this is the right side, the right side, you call this forcing function eh. This is called a forcing function. Or basically input sa system analysis. This is called an input. Now, since ang maganda naka-polynomial form yung yung right side niyo. So that's okay. Okay? So if naka-polynomial form siya, mas madali ito dahil you just have to equate this, the coefficients of this polynomial, to the coefficients on the other side. For example, ito yung coefficient kasi ng x raised to 0, itong 1. So you have to equate this x raised to 0 coefficients on the left side and on the right side. So gagawin nyo itong 1, yung right side niya. So magiging equation nyo dyan is 2 times 1, a2 plus a0 equals 1. Okay. Nag-guess nyo yan? Yung idea na yan? Pag meron sa right side. Okay. Sundan natin siya for example ng x square. Okay. Nasaan yung x square nito? Ito, x square. So yung 4 times 3, a4 plus a2, i-equate dapat natin yan sa coefficient ng x square, which is 1. Okay? Kung may x square, meron ganito sa kabilang side. Okay? So we're just equating coefficients. Okay? So if that is polynomial here, okay? If that is polynomial here, paano kung hindi siya polynomial? Halimbawa, instead of that, ang nakalagay naman sa right side nyo, ito. Your forcing function is, say, for example, e raised to x. Bawa e raised to x muna. What you do here, is you express this e raised to x in terms of its Maclaurin series. So in this case, that Maclaurin series is summation of 1 over m factorial times x raised to m for m equals 0 up to infinity. Which pag in-expand natin becomes 1 plus x plus 1 over 2 factorial x square plus 1 over 3 factorial times x cube and so on. 1 over 4 factorial x raised to 4 and so on. So ito ngayon yung i-equate nyo dun sa kabilang side. Okay? Naintindihan? Kung ano yung mga gagawin dito? Wala sumasagot Reasons nga kung yun pa kayo. Ayan, baka delay. Pero naintindihan nyo to? Yung gagawin nyo kapag merong e raised to x sa kabilang side? Basta ang gagawin nyo dito is that kailangan maging polynomial siya. So kung polynomial na siya, that's fine. I-equate nyo na lang yung coefficients on the left side. Pagka hindi, you have to look for a series. Okay, a power series of this function. And then, yun yung i-equate yung coefficients ngayon. So this Okay, pero since 0 nga yung nakalagay dyan, we'll leave it at 0 lahat. Okay. Now, we are now ready to solve these coefficients. Pero, these coefficients at A0, A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, and so on. These are the coefficients that we need to solve. But we need to set aside arbitrary constants. So how many arbitrary constants do we need in this case? Ilang arbitrary constants ang kailangan natin?
2 po.
So we need 2 arbitrary constants. Okay, so those arbitrary constants are A0 and A1. So these are your arbitrary constants. So which means, ang isa-solve natin is yung A2, A3, A4, A5 in terms of this A0 and A1. Okay, isa-solve natin si A2, A3, A4, A5 in terms of A0 tsaka A1. Okay? But as you can see in the equation, okay, tingnan niyo mabuti yung mga equations, no? Ito kasing itong x square ko, meron siyang A4 at saka A2. Okay? Si A2, kaya kong i-express in terms ng A0. So, tingnan nyo Si A2, kaya kong i-express in terms ng A0. Based dito sa x raised to 0. Okay? Now, based sa x square, si A4, kaya kong i-express kay A2. Based yan sa x square. Which in turn, si A2, kaya kong i-express din sa A0. So therefore, pwede kong i-express si A4 kay A0. Nag-gets yung logic, yung ginagawa ko. I'm trying to look at where I could express these coefficients into. So tingnan pa natin. Halimbawa, kung titingnan niyo yung x raised to 4, si A6, okay, pwede kong i-express kay A4. Which eventually, pwede kong i-express kay A0. Okay? Naintindihan yung gusto kong mangyari dito? Okay. Tapos tingnan nyo pa to. Another thing. Tingnan nyo itong unang equation. Itong equation para kay x raised to 1. According kay x raised to 1, pwede ko palang i-express si A3 papunta kay A1. I can express A3 papuntang A1. Pero meron ba akong path para may express si A3 papunta kay A0? Mukhang wala kasi wala namang relationship si A3 tsaka si A2. Okay? Kumbaga, hindi ako makakatalon. Kung ito yung titignan ko, hindi ako makakatalon dito. So, the only choice that I have is to express A3 in terms of A1. Okay? Tapos, tingnan nyo pa. Halimbawa sa x raised to 3. Tingnan nyo itong x raised to 3. Okay? It seems from x raised to 3, okay, I can express A5 papunta kay A3. Which in turn, pwede kong i-express kay A1. Using x raised to 3 coefficients. Okay? Ito, tingnan nyo to. X raised to 5. Mukhang kaya kong express si A7 papunta kay A5. So, I can express A7 papunta kay A5, sabi nung coefficients ng x raised to 5. Okay? Which in turn, itong A raised to 7, pwede ko palang i-express papunta kay A1. Pero kung papansinin nyo mabuti, hindi ko maitatalon yung coefficients ko papunta sa kabilang side. Okay? Which means, halimbawa, si A7, hindi ko kayang i-express in terms ng A0. Dahil wala naman siyang direct pathway. Pero ano yung mapapansin nyo doon sa hatian nila? Kasi nahati sila sa dalawang grupo eh. Ano yung mapapansin nyo sa hatian nila? These coefficients are divided in terms of what?
Odd even exponents po.
Yon. They are expressed in terms of in terms of even powers of x. Ito, naka-express in terms of odd powers of x. So, sa ilang mga isa-solve yung mga problems, may encounter nito like madalas. Okay? May mga times na may encounter nito that you would be able to divide your coefficients into 2. And yung hatian is that you can express, one group can be expressed in terms of, or one group is connected by even powers of x, and the other group is connected by odd powers of x. So yun ang gagawin natin. Hahatiin natin siya sa dalawa. Isa-solve natin separately yung coefficients ng even powers of x at saka yung odd powers of x. Okay? So which means, lahat ng even powers of x, i-express natin in terms of AO. And lahat ng odd powers of x, yung coefficients that are based on even powers of x, i-express natin in terms of AO. And lahat ng coefficients in terms of odd powers of x, okay, i-express natin in terms ng A1. So, gusto ko kayo na mag-figure out nito kung paano ko siya nakuha galing doon. Please try to figure that out. Okay? Ang hirap i-type niyan. Para lang mas maging malinaw siya. So, sana intindihin nyo ito mabuti. Okay? Ayos ba tayo doon? Mukhang hindi tayo ayos doon. Mukhang hindi kayo nag-agree sa akin. Paki-figure out to mabuti kung paano siya naging ganito. Okay, pero ito yung pattern Ito yung pattern. Una, alternating yung signs niyan. Negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive. Okay? I-align natin yung mga coefficients para mas makita nyo. Negative 1/2 AO. 1/2 2 factorial pala. Negative 1/2 factorial AO. 1/4 factorial AO. Negative 1/6 factorial AO. 1/8 factorial AO. Negative 1/10 factorial AO. 1/12 factorial AO. Okay. Mamaya na nahanapan ng general pattern to. Pagka-substitute din tayo mag-add ng general pattern. Ito naman. Ang pattern naman yan ito. So, in terms to ng AO, ito in terms ng A1. This is negative 1/3 pi, 3 factorial. A1. Okay. 1/5 factorial. A1. Negative 1/7 factorial. A1. 1/9 factorial. A1. Negative 1/11 factorial. A1. and 1 over 13 factorial A1. So medyo nakikita niyo naman na meron talagang pattern na mag-e-exist, di ba? Tama ba? Meron kayo nakikitang pattern naman, di ba? Malinis naman yung pattern eh. Hindi lang sabog-sabog yung mga numbers. Tama ba? Mas mahirap to kapag medyo sabog yung numbers. So, kapag medyo sabog yung numbers, yun lang. Okay? Medyo malaking good luck talaga sa ating lahat pagka ito ay medyo sabog yung numbers. Pero in this case, hindi naman sabog yung numbers eh. So, malinis naman siya tingnan. Okay? Pero yun pa rin yung skill ay develop niya, yung pagtingin ng pattern. Okay? Now, so we are now able to determine this coefficients, no? After determining this coefficient, again, we go back to the proposed solution. Ayan, dinamihan ko na yung number of terms. Sinulat ko na siya ng mas mahaba. Kasi ang gagawin ko, iisa-isahin kong palitan tong A2, A3, A4, A5, A6, A7, A8, A9, A10. Depende dito. Okay? But here's the thing. Since yung coefficients natin ay nakagrupo in terms ng even powers of x at saka odd powers of x, yun yung ginawa ko dito. Nire-arrange ko tong series na to. Okay? I rearrange this series in such a way that all together magkakasama yung even powers of x o yung terms containing even powers of x, okay, and the terms containing odd powers of x. Kita ba? Yung isang grupo, even powers of x. Yung kabilang grupo, odd powers of x. Kita? Okay. Ngayon, gagawan tayo ngayon ng substitution. So, yung A2 dito, palitan natin nung A2 dito, which is negative 1 over 2 pi A0. Okay? So, yung A2 is negative 1 over 2 pi A0. Okay? Yung A4, kung matatandaan nyo yung pattern dito ha, pwedeng hindi tayo mag-refer back dito. Okay? Pero yung A4 is basically 1 over 4 pi A0. Okay, yan yung A4. Yung A6 is negative 1 over 6 pi, 6 factorial, payo ng pi. 1 over 6, negative 1 over 6 factorial, A0. That's A6. A8 is positive 1 over 8 factorial times A0. A10 is negative 1 over 10 factorial times A0. Yung kasunod niyan is positive 1 over 12 factorial times A0, x raised to 12. Ang kasunod niyan is negative 14, 1 over negative 14 factorial, A0 times x raised to 14, and so on. Okay? So, okay tayo dyan. Nasundan? Itong first set of terms. Okay? Ganun din yung second set of terms. Yung A1, iiwanan lang natin siya as A1 kasi nga arbitrary constant siya. So we will leave it as A1. Okay? Pero yung A3 is negative 1 over 3 factorial A1 times x cubed. Ito, A5 is positive 1 over 5 factorial times A1 times x raised to 5 and so on. Okay? So nasundan yan? Sana ma-figure out na ito mabuti ha. Okay. So, it would make sense then, dahil makikita nyo naman dito, that it would make sense that we factor out A0. Okay? And we factor out A1 here. Okay. Ngayon, tingnan nyo mabuti yung mga terms na naiwan sa loob ng parenthesis. Okay. Tapos, tingin tayo sa table natin ng Taylor and Maclaurin series. Okay. Most especially, I would like you to focus on these two. Okay. Focus tayo dyan sa dalawang yan. Lagyan natin siya dito. Pwede ko bang Ayan. Pwede pala. Ayan, tingnan natin ha. Tingnan nyo mabuti yung unang term. Or yung unang naka-parenthesis. Ito. Yan. Di ba ang sinusundang pattern yan, ito? 1 minus x squared over 2 factorial plus 4 over x raised to 4 over 4 factorial minus x raised to 6 over 6 factorial. Tama ba? Yun yung sinusundan nung unang set ng nyo. So lumalabas itong set of this set of terms actually corresponds to cosine of x. Okay? While the second set of terms, okay, is x minus x cubed over 3 factorial plus x raised to 5 over 5 factorial minus x raised to 7 over 7 factorial and so on. So it turns out na itong second set of terms ninyo ay sine of x. So ito yun. Tama ba? Markahan natin to. This is from table of Taylor and Maclaurin. Although Maclaurin series lang talaga to ha. Yung table na pinrovide ko, this is the table of Maclaurin series lang. Okay. If you want, you can find more comprehensive table of Taylor and Maclaurin series from the internet. Okay, merong mga mas comprehensive na list doon. Okay? So, yung binigay ko kasi doon sa sa lesson, this is from lesson 4.10. Okay? Yung binigay ko doon is actually just a very basic list. Okay? May makikita pa kayong ibang table na mas marami pang entry. Okay? And remember in topic 4, diniscuss dun yung interval of convergence at saka yung radius of convergence. So this is something that I haven't talk about yet, okay, at this point. Okay, pero this is an idea that you need to also know about these things. Okay? So ayun. So lalabas ngayon, okay? Yung first set of terms niyo would be for cosine. Okay? Yung second set of terms niyo is for sine function. This is for cosine x. This is for sine of x. Okay? And therefore, ang solution natin ito. In which itong A0 pinalitan natin ng C1. Tapos itong yung A1 pinalitan natin ng C2. Okay? Is this clear? So again, so far, we are still getting the results, okay? The same results, okay? For differential equations that we solve using elementary methods, okay? And we solve them using power series method. Okay, so we are able to get the same results for the two. Okay? But again, kung ang applicable method nyo naman in a differential equation is yung elementary method, then use elementary methods. Kasi nakita nyo naman na napakaraming steps na involved pagka power series method. So ano yung mga equations that we can actually solve using the power series method? Okay? Ito. Yung mga may variable coefficients. Okay? We will solve equations. Okay? We will solve equations having variable coefficients. Okay, and in this case, still, your DE is homogeneous. Wala pa rin siyang forcing function. Okay, we still deal with, or we will try to first demonstrate the use of power series method in solving homogeneous equations. But this time, you have now variable coefficients. Okay, but you have to first check, okay, you have to first check if P of X and Q of X have power series representation. Okay? If both of them are power series have power series representation. Okay. Number 1. If P of X or Q of X are polynomials, pag polynomials yung mga yan, okay, then you're good to go. Dahil siguro, yung polynomials kasi are themselves power series eh. A polynomial such as 1 plus x squared plus x cubed is actually a power series. Okay? A finite power series ka lang. Okay? Pero still, this is a power series. So, if they are polynomial, then they are power series. They are good. You are good to go. Okay? If they are non-polynomials, so if they are, for example, transcendental function, check nyo muna. Please check. Okay? If a Taylor or a Maclaurin series expansion is possible. Okay? Check if a Taylor or Maclaurin series expansion is possible. So, pwede niyo i-check sa sa lesson 4.7, sa lesson 4.8, okay? Tsaka sa 4.9 at tsaka sa 4.10. Okay? Hindi lang pala to, pwede rin palang geometric series. Okay? You can also use geometric series here. So these lessons actually allow you to express different functions in terms of geometric series, in terms of Taylor series, in terms of Maclaurin series using operations. Okay? So tingnan niyo mabuti yung mga lessons na yan. Okay? So if these are polynomials, you're okay. Wala na kayong kailangan gawin kasi naka-power series na siya. But if these are transcendental functions, okay, or non-polynomial functions, like for example, 1 plus the square root of x. Okay, o kaya something like 1 plus x raised to 1/2. Okay, pagka ganito naman, meron naman tong binomial expansion. This is covered in 4.10, yung binomial expansion. So, non-polynomial functions, meron siyang power series representation. Mga transcendental functions na commonly used are merong available yan na Taylor or Maclaurin series expansion. Yung geometric expression nyo kasi, yung geometric series nyo kasi can actually be used to express mga rational functions. Okay, such as 1 over 1 plus x can actually be used to geometric series expansion can be actually used to do this. Okay, o kaya yung tipong 4 over 2 plus x, mga ganyan. O kaya 2 plus x squared. Pwede nyo gamitan ng geometric series expansion yan. Okay, so the information are all here. So, kaya medyo kailangan nyo siyang aralin. Okay? Now, I think kasi medyo mahaba pa yung next discussion. Okay, pero basically, yung steps nito, pareho lang naman nung previous steps. May makikita lang kayong mga konting changes. Okay? Dahil nga sa presence nito at saka nito. Okay, which we will discuss on Tuesday. Okay? I-discuss natin yung part na yan sa Tuesday. Okay? So, ayun. May questions ba? Okay, so kung wala, reminder lang ha, Wednesday yung quiz number 2 natin ha. So we will have our quiz number 2 on Wednesday. And hopefully, kasi tatapos natin sa Tuesday. So, mas maganda kung magkakaroon na rin kayo ng advanced reading to. And ganito ang ginawa na lang natin. Isa lang yung topic na i-discuss natin under topic 5. Yun lang talaga. Okay? Yun lang talaga i-discuss natin na topic under topic 5. Okay? So, ayun. Naisip ko nga is I can actually discuss the entire topic 5 using one lang. one topic lang, one lesson lang. So, ito na yun. Ito na yung discussion natin sa topic 5. So, which means after this, we'll proceed with topic 6 already. Okay, which now will be under quiz number 3. Yun naman yung magiging quiz number 3 ninyo. Probably topic 6 and if possible topic 7. Okay, so malamang yun na yung last 2 or last 1 topic natin. Kung ano yung matatapos natin doon. Okay? And we'll start that by Friday next week. So, sa Tuesday, soft deadline ng ano ninyo, ng assignment ninyo, homework 4 and 5 ninyo. Wednesday, quiz number 2. I think sa 28 yata yung hard deadline ng homeworks 1 to 5 ninyo. Sa 28 yata. So, paki-check yung mga schedule natin. Okay, so sige. I think we can dismiss the class na. Thank you for attending today. Okay? And pag may mga questions lang, just send me a message. Okay? So, sige. Kindly log out the meeting na lang. Thank you.
Thank you po,
Thank
sir.
you po, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Salamat
Thank you po, sir.
Okay. Sige, ingat kayo.